Hey guys, Jeremy here, Simple Little Life, and welcome to another edition of Tool Time Tuesday. Last week we talked about a rotary platen. This week we're going to talk about a glass platen. What is a glass platen? Well, it's not necessarily a platen made of glass. However, maybe you'd think of it as a platen liner or a platen wear surface. This stuff right here. Technically, it is not glass. This is actually a ceramic material. I received this from one of my buddies, one of my knife making friends that I hope to meet in real life one day, BM Knife and Tool. I'll leave a link to his Instagram in the description below, and he sent me this piece. Before we get too into that though, as always, let's check out a couple of viewers' knives. Ooh. All right, the first knife we'll look at this week is sent to me from Cole, and he is 18 years old from Los Angeles, California. I spent a lot of time, about 3 years working in Burbank, and this time of year I am so jealous of your weather, Cole. Anyways, Cole's made several knives, but he's never had a way to harden them before, and so he finally got a hold of a blowtorch and was able to heat treat this blade. I think this is a really cool looking Kiradashi, very nice, useful knife there. He used birch plywood for the scales, and it's a hidden tang design. All in all, it turned out really, really nicely. He also made this leather sheath for it, and he even used the stitching tutorial that I had on my channel to learn how to do the leather work. So that is really cool to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, Cole. Great looking blade there. Keep making knives, and I hope you continue to have fun with it. The next knife we'll look at is sent to me from William, and he is from Cochrane, Ontario. I've never heard of Cochrane, Ontario. I live right close to Cochrane, Alberta. I didn't know there was even a Cochrane, Ontario, so that's very cool. This knife looks absolutely stunning. Beautiful photography around it too. It is a 1/4 inch thick 01 tool steel, 9 inches overall. He used zebra wood handles and brass pins. Very, very nice shape there. Great profile, the fit and finish, and especially that leather sheath. That looks so incredibly robust. What a lot of work has gone into the knife and the sheath. William, this is a fantastic blade. I'm absolutely honored to share this with everybody. Very good work. Keep it up. And the last knife we're going to take a look at is sent to me from Tommy, and he's a 29-year-old from Georgia. He's been making knives for about 3 years now, and this is one of the recent ones he's done. He made it for a customer. 5160 cold blued, the blade with custom micarta. Really, really great looking blade. He says here, I hope you like it. Absolutely. I like your maker's mark on there. That custom micarta looks absolutely fantastic. A lot of work has gone into this blade. Very nicely done. Thanks to everybody who sends your knives in for viewers' knives. If you'd like to have yours featured on this channel, just email me, jeremy@homesteadknives.com. We will get it featured. We're kind of trying to get back into doing the viewers knives dedicated video, as well as 3 viewers knives on Tool Time Tuesday. Back to Tool Time Tuesday. So let's take a look at this glass platen. Essentially, this is a ceramic. It is not actually glass. It's got incredible wear resistance. We're going to head over to the grinder. I'll show you my flat platen, and I've had this piece of glass here, this piece of ceramic, probably for 3 weeks now, and I've held off on putting it onto my platen, mostly because, well, I've been doing a lot of hollow grinds lately and concave grinds with my rotary platen, and I wanted to make a video of how to install these things, because there's not a lot of videos on YouTube about it. There's a couple different ways to do it. I'm going to try the JB Weld method. From what I understand, you don't want to just use like a regular epoxy unless it's got a very high heat rating. Obviously, there's a lot of friction. Friction generates heat, and heat could cause, you know, if your adhesive that you're using to put this to your platen, your metal platen on, is not going to do well in high heat scenarios, you don't want it to soften up and come off. Also, we're going to make a little ledge so that should the adhesive come off, we'll still have the belt holding it to the platen, and we'll have a little metal ledge that's going to sit on. It's not going to jam underneath the wheels and go shatter glass all over your face. That'd be bad. Anyways, let's go over to the grinder right now, and we'll kind of take a look at this. I'll show you the problems that I have with my metal platen, how it's wearing, and we'll go ahead and get this thing installed. All right, so let's go ahead and take the belt off the grinder, and I'll kind of show you the surface. Actually, I've already flipped this platen around one time because I was getting quite a bit of dishing in the platen. You'll see it when we take it off. We'll do a bit of a close-up here, and then we'll go ahead and try to figure out how to make a shelf for this to rest on. Now, obviously in this video, I won't be able to tell you what it's like to necessarily use this, because I've got to wait for 24 hours for the JB Weld to cure, and then once we do that, I need to grind several knives out before I can tell you what it's actually like. But when you see how worn out the platen that I have right now, the metal one is, I think you'll be quite surprised. And obviously the theory behind it, if you've got a really hard surface like a ceramic or a glass, it's definitely going to wear better than steel. Steel's not all that hard, especially this is just mild steel. It's not hardened or in any way, shape, or form. So the theory is that glass should last much, much longer than this. It should remain nice and flat. Obviously, glass is incredibly flat, much more precise than, say, rolled steel. So that's kind of the idea behind it. But at the same time, I can't really show you exactly the difference it makes. It's going to be something that, you know, over the course of some knives, we'll be able to see. I'll be able to tell you if it feels that much better. Now, one thing I do is when I am noticing that, that I've got wear spots, dips or something in certain parts of my platen, when I'm making a knife, I don't have any knife handy right now, but I'll do my grinding up here. If I see that it's got some weird artifacts in it, or I can tell that I'm using a worn part of the platen, if you're not grinding with a jig, if you're freehand grinding, you can just move up to this part, which is a little bit more flat, it hasn't been worn as much, but really the problem remains that this whole surface is not perfectly flat, so this glass should definitely fix that. Okay, we've got our platen off. Let's take it to the bench and have a look. Okay, so with the platen off the grinder, I just need to take off these bolts right here. Like I had mentioned, I indeed did switch this around. So this was the side that I've done the majority of my grinding on, and you can even see it. I mean, I don't even need to put a straight edge on there. You can see this big divot here where the material's kind of washed away, and that's just the way it is. I mean, these things wear. You can see again where it's kind of starting right here. Now, I'm pretty sure we'd have a very difficult time finding any surface irregularities there. If I could find my big long machinist square, where would that have gone? I'm at my grinder now and I left it over here, silly me. So let me make my way back with the platen and the straight edge. Okay, so we kind of bring this up right nice and tight. You can't really see any difference there. When we look at this part here, I'm hoping we can catch an angle that will show essentially right here. You can see light through there from my end. I don't know if that's going to show up on the camera. It probably is not. Let me see. We've got to be able to get that. Come on. Okay, right there. I think you can see light right there. Is that visible? Hopefully there's one shot in here that you'd be able to see light through, because indeed we've got a lot of dishing right here on this part of the platen. So as you can see, I mean, these things do wear out. You can buy replacements for your KMG, but the idea behind the glass is that we can put this onto here, and they actually make it a little bit narrow here, and so we're going to build a little shelf right here. Now I'm going to put a link in the description below, but I believe the only place that I know that you can actually purchase these is usaKnifemaker.com, that kind of sells them the pre-cut pieces here. I'm not entirely sure, and again, this one was gifted to me, so I do not know where this one was sourced from. I'll give you some quick dimensions though. It is 2 inches by 7 3/4, just shy of 7 3/4 inches. And that obviously is probably a nice fit for the platen that I'm using. A lot of guys have bigger platens, so take that into consideration. But what we're going to do is we are going to, well, first we're going to build our shelf. So we'll kind of set this glass right here. We'll make a little shelf that this will sit on. And then what I'm thinking is probably just going to be a little piece of flat bar, and we'll drill and tap it so we can take that off as well if we ever need to in the future. And then basically that shelf will always be down. And so when this is sitting on here, even if you had no adhesive holding this on, basically when our belt was on there, it would obviously be keeping it nice and tight to this piece of steel, and then the shelf would keep it from slipping down. You can just imagine the nightmare that would happen if you get your belt ring along here, coming around here, and this thing ever came down. If you were relying just on the adhesive, if this thing ever came down and got caught in the wheels, it'd just be like, pow! And it would be a pretty nasty shower and flurry of little glass shards all over the place. And I'm pretty sure nobody wants anything to do with that. So I definitely think the shelf is the way to go. The adhesive that I'm going to be using is the regular old JB Weld. And from everything, all the research I've done, this is adequate. I have seen a YouTube video where a guy did this, although his grinder looked like, I think he had a Northridge tool grinder. It looked brand new. And he actually used RVT red silicone or gasket material, whatever, which I think probably would work good because it's got incredibly high temperature rating. My only one concern with that is that RVT is typically not a really rigid adhesive, so I'm wondering if you might have a little bit of movement in there. I don't know, but then again, as long as it's not going to come off, it doesn't matter if it moves around a bit. If it hits the bottom plate there, if the adhesive doesn't come off, if it can handle the heat that's generated by the friction, no big deal, right? So anyways, we are going to try the JB Weld. Before we get to that, we do need to make our shelf, and then we're going to clean this sucker up really well. What I might actually do is sandblast one side of this so I can get a really good adhesion with the JB Weld. weld, as well as sandblast this side so we can kind of rough up the surface a little bit and just get that bond to be really, really good between these two parts. But like I said, before we do any of that, we need to go ahead and make a shelf. Alright, so just as a little side note here, tapping these out 1024, and I actually busted a tap in this end, this hole right here, so I had to switch over and come to this side, and I'd forgotten that it had this little tap. I gotta show you this sucker. So this tap here is only a 2 flute, and I tell you what, these things are amazing. Far superior than your standard like 3 and 4 flute taps. You can see, check out that curl I just pulled off there, and that was just really quick. This is a size 25 hole, which is the right fit. I think that's like a 76-78% fit for this tap. But with these 2 flute taps, they go through holes when you're tapping far superior to the 3 and 4 fluters. And I tell you what, man, you just pop those holes through. You can see I didn't even have to back it in, back it out. It just went boom right through there. First time. I forgot I had these. Let's see who makes this. Hi-Pro. Anyways, just thought I'd show you these 2 flute taps. Super duper awesome. Alright, so I've gone ahead, sandblasted both the metal platen as well as this little piece of ceramic. I wasn't sure if it would take, but it actually did. You can see it's obviously not nearly as clear. I mean, there's a little dust on the other side here. This side is nice and smooth. This side has been roughed up a little bit. Not a lot. Obviously, this is ceramic, so one of the qualities is its wear quality, and it's not going to bust apart real quick. But we were able to rough up that surface enough. What I'll do now is I'm going to give this a quick clean. Get all that dust off of there. You know what, I'm going to clean the other side too, and all the edges. This is one of a super duper nice clean surface to work with. Okay, now put our gloves on. I've never really used JB Weld that much. I mean, I've used it a little bit, but really not that much. Now, one tip I found off of Instagram, and I wish I knew the person who shared it. It's not my idea, but he mixes all of his epoxy in these little silicone containers. I think these are supposed to be some type of an ice cube tray, like from the dollar store. You can get these super cheap, and then you put your epoxy in here. You can mix it all up in here, and then once it's hardened, you just peel it out, and it just releases itself from these little thingies. So that's kind of cool. See if I can figure out what looks like an even amount. I think that looks like an even amount. Okay, now we're just gonna mix this thing up here. Now I've actually heard people using JB Weld on their knives. And I guess the one drawback that I've heard some people comment is that sometimes you can see the color of the JB Weld in there. Personally, I've never tried it. Kind of curious if you've ever used JB Weld to put scales on a knife. Let me know in the comments if it works. I'd be kind of curious. And then I have marked this which way I want it to be oriented. Oops. Maybe I should have mixed up more. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I probably should have mixed up more.
seen people do is you really kind of want to work it back and forth. Obviously, you can kind of get a cue as to what kind of contact you have going on. Don't really want to see too many air pockets in there, and I'm seeing quite a few. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. I'm going to squeeze out all the excess. But I can see I've got much better contact there now. Okay, now we're going to give it a 1-2 flipperoo. Get this lined up. And then from what I understand, you don't really want to clamp it hard. And I've actually seen people say that you just want to use tape to hold it on there while it dries. So I'm going to trust the experts. By experts, I mean somebody else who's done it before, and I'm just going to use some tape on there. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to leave this to dry overnight. We'll come back in the morning, check it. Hopefully it's all cured nicely, and we'll go ahead and get it put on the grinder, see what it does. All right, guys, it is the next morning, and let's see what happened. Well, I'm fairly happy with that. It's pretty good and straight on there. And let's wipe off that surface just a bit. I think running the screws through before we let it cure is going to help us out. Whoops, we got this. Sorry guys, the lav mic cord was in the way. Okay, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing installed. One thing I'm also curious about is how well this actually worked. Oh, look at that. Totally the way to go. I mean, that was obviously a little JB Weld that didn't get mixed together properly. I think what I'm going to do is cut these up into individual containers. I think that'll help, but I definitely think that's the way to mix epoxy. Okay, well, let's get this put on and see what it does. One thing that my buddy, Mr. B and Knife and Tool, had recommended, when you get a brand new ceramic belt, sometimes they have a little bit of ceramic pieces, like little dust or fine particles of ceramic on the back of the belt. And he had said that that actually scratched his platen a little bit. So one thing he does, he just makes sure to wipe off the inside of belts, brand new belts, before he puts them on, just to help avoid that problem. This one should be totally fine. This aluminum oxide, and it's used, and it's pretty darn clean. So let's just see what it does here. Turn this down a tinch. All right, guys, so after about 10 minutes of grinding, my initial impressions are that that is really a significant difference. We take a look at this bevel here, and I didn't spend a lot of time on this bevel because this was a knife that I was, was a scrap bin knife, but seems a lot easier to get a really nice flat finish with the glass on there. Also, when I tried, just flattening out these surfaces here, I mean, we got a really nice, very flat surface there in no time at all on both sides. And I definitely can tell a difference between that and the metal platen. I'm very interested to see how the JB Weld holds up. I tried taking a piece of bar stock and just ramming it in there, trying to heat everything up. But obviously that's very little of a test. It's going to take some time, some knives, some heavy grinding on it to kind of see how it goes. Obviously, I'm constantly going to be a little bit more cautious now that there's glass on my platen, because that aspect of it is still a little bit scary. Having said that, when I grind, I always wear these. They call these seismic glasses. They've got the rubber seals around them. So my eyes will be well protected, but I mean, really, if you've got that thing cranking up 3,000-4,000 surface feet per minute, if glass goes in there, I mean, it's going to be boom. It's going to be popping those pieces of glass into your skin. Wouldn't be very cool. So anyways, it's gonna take some time. I'm gonna take some knives to kind of see how much I like it, how much better it is. Speaking of that, as soon as I get this video edited, we are going to start on another knife build project on this channel. In fact, I'm gonna start making it today. Maybe even tomorrow, the first part of that video will be live. Not entirely sure what knife we're gonna make yet. I don't know if the first knife should be with this glass platen or with my rotary platen. I'm thinking it might be my rotary platen, but I don't know for sure. So anyways, I had to get that platen installed, and I thought, you know what, I may as well film it and take you guys along for the ride. Can I show you what the glass platen's about? A lot of people hadn't heard about them. If you've got experience using glass platens, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. You use JB Weld, have you used like RVT or some other type of epoxy, an adhesive? I'm really quite interested to see what other people are doing. Not a whole lot of information to be found out there, but the most of it does say, you know, JB Weld, and again, I've seen people using RVT. I don't know. Interesting to see how it works out. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. You can do that by clicking on this little circle right here. And over in this corner, I'll put a couple of videos, a playlist that you might enjoy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Cheers.